Okay, so what if I told you that every time you go to a museum to appreciate art, you're, you're kind of missing the point entirely? The philosopher Martin Heidegger had some pretty explosive ideas that basically take a sledgehammer to how we all think about art. It's going to be a wild ride, but honestly, it might just change the way you look at, everything.
Get this, Heidegger just drops this bomb on us. He says art today belongs in the domain of the pastry chef. I mean, seriously, a masterpiece by Van Gogh is basically the same as a fancy dessert. When a thinker of his stature says something that bonkers, you've got to stop and ask, yeah, what on earth could he possibly mean? Was this guy just trying to get a rise out of people? Or did he see some huge fundamental problem in the way we all experience art? Well, that's the puzzle we are about to solve together. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we're going to tackle this wild claim that art just isn't for you. Then we'll dig into what he called aesthetics and why he had such a big problem with it. After that, we'll get into his totally different idea of how art really works. We'll see it all in action with a famous painting of shoes, and then we'll uncover the secret he thinks that painting is hiding. So let's just dive right into it. Art isn't for you. I know, it sounds nuts, but this is Heidegger's core challenge to us, all boiled down. He's basically arguing that our whole modern way of appreciating art, treating it like a nice product that we consume for our own personal enjoyment, completely misunderstands its real, world-shaking power. And the main villain in this story, the target of his whole critique, it all comes down to one word: aesthetics. Now, for Heidegger, this wasn't just some academic subject. No, it was a symptom of a much, much bigger problem with our modern world. The word itself is actually pretty new. It only popped up in the 1750s, and it comes from the Greek word for feeling or sensation. And that, right there, is the key for Heidegger. Aesthetics reduces art to just an object whose only job is to give us, the viewer, some kind of private, personal feeling. So here's how that process works. Let's walk through it. First, the art gets turned into an object, just a thing separate from us. Second, we become the subject, the detached observer looking at the thing. Third, the whole experience gets boiled down to just a private little feeling inside your own head. And finally, and this is the big one, this whole setup just feeds into our modern obsession with being in control, with mastering everything. Art becomes just one more thing for us to consume and have an opinion about. He's got a name for this obsession too: subjectivism. It's this deep-seated modern drive to put humanity at the very center of the universe, to measure, calculate, and ultimately control every single bit of reality. And by making art all about our feelings, the whole idea of aesthetics is just another way we try to make the entire world revolve around us. Okay, so if art isn't just a feel-good object, then what the heck is it? Heidegger's answer is pretty out there. He's not interested in how art makes you feel. He's interested in what art does, how it works on a massive, world-changing scale. And this right here just lays out the difference perfectly. On one side, you have that pastry chef model. Art is just an object for you to enjoy. But on the other side, that's Heidegger's view. For him, art is a happening of truth. A great work of art doesn't just show you what a culture is like. It literally builds the world that culture lives inside. It sets the very stage for history. I mean, think about an ancient Greek temple. For Heidegger, that was not just a pretty building. It was the organizing center of their entire reality. It set up their relationship to the gods, to nature, to life and death, the whole shebang. The temple didn't just sit in their world, it made their world. And in doing so, it gave the Greeks their entire way of seeing themselves. All right, I know what you're thinking. That is all very grand, very abstract. So to bring this all crashing down to earth, Heidegger zooms in on a very specific and now very famous example, a painting of some worn-out shoes. He uses this painting by Vincent van Gogh. It's just a simple pair of shoes. Now, the old aesthetics approach would be all about us, right? How it makes us feel, our appreciation for the artist's technique. But Heidegger, he couldn't care less about our reaction. He cares about what the painting itself reveals. I mean, just listen to how he describes it. He's not just seeing leather and laces. He sees the entire world of a peasant woman. He sees the brutal hardship of her work, her deep connection to the land, what he calls the silent call of the earth. For him, a whole reality is bursting out of this one simple painting. But hold on, here's the paradox. The shoes are empty. Nobody's wearing them.
they're just sitting there. So how can a painting of an unused thing possibly reveal the deep truth of its use? How can it show us what it's like to be in that world? That is the central puzzle we have to solve. And this, my friends, leads us to the big secret. The answer to that puzzle is all about two key ideas that Heidegger says this painting shows us for the very first time, what he calls world and earth. Okay, so world and earth. Think of the world like the stage we live on. It's our shared reality, where everything makes sense, has a purpose, has a name. It's everything that's out in the open and clear to us. But earth, on the other hand, that's the mysterious raw stuff that the stage itself is made of. It's the deep, wild foundation that our world stands on, but that we can never fully grasp or control. It's always hiding more than it shows. And here's the real kicker. These two forces are locked in a constant battle, what Heidegger calls an essential strife. The world is always trying to drag everything into the light to make it clear, useful, and understandable. And the earth is always resisting, always pulling back into mystery and darkness. A true work of art, he says, is the arena where this epic battle gets put on display for all of us to see. So let's go back to the shoes one last time. For Heidegger, this painting isn't really about a pair of shoes. The shoes themselves, they represent the world, the reliable everyday tools of a farmer's life. But the way Van Gogh paints them reveals the earth, that raw, dark, unknowable mystery that they came from and belong to. The painting isn't just showing us shoes, it's showing us the huge cosmic struggle between clarity and mystery, the very process that creates reality itself. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? First, we have to try and stop seeing art as just an object for us to look at and judge. Instead, we should ask, what work is this piece of art doing? Second, great art creates a world by showing us this fight between what we know and what we can never fully know. Real engagement isn't just passive observation. It's about stepping into that fight. And finally, this whole idea can actually teach us a different way to live, one that isn't about mastering everything, but about being open to the mystery that our world is built on. And that leaves us with a pretty big question for today. In our world of endless scrolling and curated feeds and disposable images, how do we even find an experience like this anymore? How can we possibly slow down enough to actually encounter a work of art that doesn't just give us a quick feeling, but that does the profound, difficult work of opening up an entire world?